Ooh, there is a... Okay. It just won't be live. Low network connection.
Yeah, that's that.
Do I just press record video?
Let's try one more time. Hold on a second here. Facebook likes to do this to me when I have to talk about something really important. We're on. Hi guys. Hey. Welcome everybody to our Transformational Healing Seminar. I'm Dr. Dennis Mariano, and this is a really important topic that we have because, as you know, in today's world, let me ask you something. Do we live in a stressless or stressful world? Full, right? Now, what are the stresses that we experience in life? What types? What are the categories that we can have stress in our lives that could be chronic?
Work, family.
Work. Yeah, one time. Work. What else?
Family.
Family. What else?
Health.
Anybody?
Health issues.
Health issues.
School.
School. Yeah, absolutely. What else? Food. Did you say? Bad food. Right. Yeah. So there's basically physical, emotional, and chemical stress in our lives. So the challenge with that is that, can we avoid all those stresses? Can you control those stresses all the time? Right, to a certain extent you can. If you try to stay away, you make good choices. However, in today's world, anybody that's about my age or a little bit younger, do you agree that our lives are more complex than ever before? Than we were growing up, right? Like Greg, when we were growing up, like, Greg, dinner time, come on in. And you were running around all day long, climbing trees, chasing your friends, getting all your energy out, right? You weren't sitting in school all day long, stressing about things that don't matter in life in the big picture, correct?
Right.
And all the testing, we didn't have any testing, we're fine. You know what I mean? I have 3 degrees, I don't have all that testing. You know what I mean? But it's not even about that. It's about, how about us as human beings? Aren't we here to express our lives, to love each other and care for each other? But what are we doing instead? We're stressed out. Right? We've lost our tribe. So my goal for you this evening is to discuss with you the principles of how you can then adapt to the physical, emotional, and chemical stresses. And we're going to be speaking very specifically about a very specific technique, because this technique actually has helped so many people with anxiety, depression, and really severe challenges when it comes to mental health. And the most important thing is, how can we do this naturally? And we're going to be discussing about the research behind it. We'll look at the longevity and also the outcomes measures that we can have, and also some case studies as well. So the title of tonight's seminar is, do you have trapped emotions in your body that are making you or helping you, keeping you sick, right? So we're going to talk about the mechanism behind that, because most people think of emotions as just something like, what do people think? Give me some examples of what people think emotions are.
Joy.
What's that?
Joy.
That's good. Those are the good emotions. So how about negative emotions? Where do you think they come from? Does anybody know where they come from? Anybody ever talk to you about that? Right, nobody think. What's your impression of what you think emotions are? Just take a guess.
Feelings.
The feelings. Where do they come from? Where are they? Doesn't it seem like they're this airy fairy? They just like clouds that just come from nowhere, and therefore you can't control them. And so therefore the traditional people that try to help you with it get lost in terms of trying to help you with it, because it's not like something you can measure, like blood pressure, you know, or hemoglobin A1C. Or thyroid. You can measure those things. How can you measure emotions, right? So the challenge with that is that when you can't identify something, it's hard to take care of it. So our discussion tonight is going to center on, again, what are the principles that allow you to, first of all, do you want to hold on to emotions, or you want to release emotional stress?
Release.
Release it. You don't want to hold on to it, right? It's just like a fart. I mean, sorry to say that. You don't want to hold on to it because then you can't go to church, right? So, you ever try not to laugh at church? You just like keep on going, especially when you're a kid. So it's the same thing. Emotions and stress is supposed to be what? Released. It's not supposed to be held on to. Okay? So healing depression and anxiety naturally with NET. NET stands for neuroemotional technique. So before we start, we always want to share with you our values. We believe that in today's world, the number one killer of people is not heart disease, cancer, right? Or diabetes. It's not those. You know what it's like? You know what causes today's people to die early? Is ignorance. People making bad decisions. And here's why. People who are suffering now due to the world views that they have that are incongruent with natural laws. Many people have been taught to think a certain way. Think about this. When's the last time you really examined why you believe something? Did you ever do that? Or it's just passed on. So there's a story. This one lady, it was Thanksgiving. They were preparing dinner, and she asked her mother, "Hey, Mom, why do you always cut the ends of the ham every time you put it in a tray?" And she goes, "You know, I never thought about that, honey." Well, ask your grandma. She's the one that started the whole thing, and grandma was there. And the granddaughter goes, "Grandma, why do you always cut the ends of the ham?" They'll be really asking her why she cuts the end of the ham. And she goes, "You know what? When we were growing up, we were so poor, and that we only had a small pan, so that's the only way we could fit it in the oven." But people are thinking there's some special reason why you cut the ends. Oh, it makes it taste better, or it's more delicious. It's like, no, we couldn't fit it in the pan. The question is, how many of us are walking around with belief systems that we never examined, and now it's running us? The question is, are those belief systems important, right? Are belief systems, whether they're true or not, important? Are they? We were just in a hotel. I was in New York City last weekend, and we're in the elevator, right? So, is there a 13th floor button? Why?
Superstition.
So wait a minute. Hotels are making elevators with no 13th floor button because it's a superstition? Do you understand why belief systems, and no, knowing me, the joker that I am, I always people go, "What floor?" Guess what I tell them?
13th.
It's no 13th floor. But if you're on the 14th floor, what floor are you really on?
The 13th.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You have to really be careful, because now the way you think and your belief systems will determine your actions. Those actions will lead to outcomes that you may not want. And if you want the best outcomes, you have to change your what?
Thinking.
Or examine your belief systems. Make sure they're real and that they're congruent with natural laws, correct?
Okay.
Because if you don't understand gravity and you jump down, which way are you going?
Down.
Oh, wait. What if you're Warren Buffett and you're like, own lots of money, and can't you get an exemption? So if Warren Buffett jumps down from the Empire State Building, which way is he going?
Down.
Wait, can't he get an exemption from like the IRS? Why? Because nature doesn't care about if you're pretty, if you smell good, if you have lots of money, if you're nice to people, you're philanthropic. You still have to follow what? Natural laws.
Yeah.
That is, if you have nothing to take away from this evening, the thing that's going to get you to where you need to go and to get the results you want is to follow what? Natural laws. Because they never change. Has gravity ever changed? Gravity's always been this way. If you go to the moon, there's still gravity. It's just a little bit slower, right? It's still there, though. So we're going to talk about that. And with that, we'll just go ahead and start. So our practice mission statement is to provide the best technology in holistic health and life care. Meaning that we're always in the cutting edge of the kind of work that we're doing, because isn't it true that the world is changing constantly? Anybody here still use Windows 95? Why are you laughing? It's like you're laughing because Windows 95 is like you can't even download anything anymore. It's still a computer, right?
Yeah.
But the software is always upgrading. Here's the question: if you're not always upgrading your knowledge and the way you practice, how are you going to help people? So that's what we do in our practice. We're always upgrading our information. Why do we do what we do? We believe that each person gets an opportunity to be a candle, to light somebody else's candle, every time you have an opportunity to touch someone's lives. However, can you do that when you're stressed out? Can you do that when you're worried about your finances? Can you do that when you're having stress in your marriage? Can you do that because your boss is yelling at you? Can you do that? Can you be kind to someone else when you're stressed out about school, right? It's really hard to do that when you're under stress. So therefore, our goal by the kind of work that we do is to provide people with the opportunity to live what kind of life?
Stressful. Thriving.
Thriving lives. What does that mean? Just getting by? You want to be abundant so you could be philanthropic. You understand? Because if you're living a life of thrival, you get to do what then? To be a beacon of hope for others. And that's our goal for you this evening. Those of you online, please type your questions in the comment section. We'll answer those later on. The principles of healing. To summarize it, there's physical stress, emotional stress, and chemical stress, correct? And we need to address those individually. The most important thing, and I'm very fortunate to have started in chiropractic because we understand that your brain and nervous system control all the organs and systems in the body to relate to the body, to your environment from Grace Anatomy, right? Without your nervous system, think about this. This is your hard drive. These are your networks. These are your peripherals. You can buy a brand new printer that's $10,000, that's laser printer, that's colored, that's Wi-Fi networked, right? But can you use it if this is shut down? The most important thing is you understand is your nervous system has to function the way it's supposed to be. Without the communication, the body can't function the way it's supposed to. So let's talk about NET. It's a stress reduction technique, and it's practiced by many healthcare professionals, by chiropractic doctors, medical doctors, naturopathic doctors, and other therapists as well. You have to have at least a master's degree or higher in order for you to learn the technique and apply it. And we have a governing board that's very strict in terms of how we use these therapies. It's an effective treatment for symptoms related to trauma and unresolved stressful emotional events. So how do we respond to stress? This is from Hans Selye. So there's two primary stresses, right? What's the first one?
Acute stress response.
Which means what? Is that old or new? Something new. It's acute. So it just happened, right? How about when you have chronic stress? It's another one. I think something that just keeps happening again and again and again, and you can't get away from it. So there's two ways that the body responds to this. The immediate danger, what happens is that your body then produces chemicals and so on that allows your body to go into fight or flight response. Why is that beneficial? If somebody's going to come and rob you, do you just want to go, hello?
Survival instinct.
You want to fight or flee. If there's something that's dangerous to you, you want to be able to run, fight, or flee. Is that true? So that is the acute response. It's perceived by your brain in order for you to actually run away. And then, when you have chronic stress, what happens then is that you go into what's called sympathetic dominance mode. What's an example of chronic stress that doesn't go away? Get an example in your life, everybody.
Pain?
Pain? Yeah, if you have chronic pain, that's very stressful, and that actually changes your brain. That's what the research shows. What else is chronic stress?
Are you talking about disease?
What's that?
Are you talking about disease?
Devastation? Yeah, you can have a disease.
For mine, it's GERD.
What's that?
It was GERD.
Yeah, so right, so yeah, you can have all kinds of symptoms in terms of anatomical symptoms. Yeah, those sort of parts of the chronic stress. So, however, what happens is the body produces chemicals to the point where it actually raises your blood pressure, it weakens your immune system, and it causes depression when you have chronic stress in the body. Remember we talked about how you hold on to that stress? And we're going to talk about how to release that stress in a minute. Now, most stressful events of today can actually get downloaded into your system, into your tissues, from unresolved past events that you've already forgotten in your brain, but it's still in your tissues. As a matter of fact, we've actually done research on that, and I'll share that with you in a minute. When you have these chronic stresses in your body, your brain begins to change. It starts to memorize patterns of behavior as if that's your new normal. You know, imagine if you have like a pebble in your shoe, and in the beginning, like, oh, that really hurts. And if you keep ignoring it, you know, you go to the beach and you have your sandals on, right? That one little pebble gets in there like, oh. I mean, you can't stand it, right? But if you just keep ignoring it because you don't have time, because you have your hands full, you kind of get used to it after a while. Your brain and nerve system does the same thing. It tries to memorize pattern of stress as if it's normal, and guess what it does to your system. It resets your system as if that stress is normal, but now you're still in sympathetic dominance mode. Here's the question. If you're in sympathetic dominance mode where you're fight, flight, or freeze, right? Can you be in healing and repair at the same time? You can, one or the other. You're either waiting for some burglar to come in and break into your house because they threatened you, or everything's fine, you're partying with everybody, having some food and drinks. You can't do both, correct? You can't be checking in the whole door and like, hey, you can't do both. So the problem is when you have these chronic stresses that you're unaware of, that gets downloaded into your system, you stay that way, and guess what? It starts to run you. And you cannot control yourself. There's no amount of talking. We'll talk about that in the different parts of the brain and how you cannot just talk yourself out of the stress when it becomes a chronic issue. So basically NET, or neuroemotional techniques, helps us find and eliminate the conditioned responses to stop the recurring patterns. And we'll actually do a demonstration tonight. It's helped many different types of stress-based symptoms. They actually did study, that I'm very proud to say, in University Jefferson Hospital here, the Mariano Cancer Center, and they did studies on this, and this is what it shows. This is in PubMed, February when? That was already almost 2 years ago, right? And basically they took cancer patients that have been diagnosed with cancer. They're now considered cured, right, after 6 months or longer. And they asked them, hey, I want you to think about that cancer. And they only took people that, if you think about what happened to them, even though they were quote-unquote cured, were still stressed at the level of 8 or 9. And they would take these patients in, and they did studies on them and how they were able to actually revert them back. And this is what they found. When they did functional MRIs of their brain, they saw in the parahippocampal area of the brain, right, that there was actually, when they were mentioning them, they would get them in the MRI scanner and they go, think about the time you sat down and the doctor goes, sorry to tell you, Mrs. Jones, you have cancer. Just light up. This is after they've been cured, right? So that means the emotions are still in the body, right? And they did 3 to 5 sessions of NET, and this is what happened afterwards. So the technique we're using, it's been around since the 80s. Finally, the science is catching up behind it to say, oh, that's really what's happening. You can see it in the brain. It's really, really critical to see that. And this is what the outcome was afterwards. Here's the most important thing. How many people do you know have either adults or children that have been to therapy again and again and again and they're still stuck? How many people know people like that? Right? I mean, it could be us, or it could be people that we know, or friends and family. I mean, you see those people, and there's no judgment, but you're just like, Margie, like, you've been going to therapy for 20 years now. All I hear you say is the psychobabble. You just keep blaming everybody the way your behavior is. It still hasn't changed. You're still misbehaving, but you're now blaming your mother for it when you were 6 because she spanked you. See what I'm saying? So let me explain to you the mechanism behind that. Therapy is really beneficial, so you can get your stress out, you have somebody to talk to, and there are techniques to actually help with that. But let me explain to you why at times things get stuck. The oldest part of your brain is called what? The reptilian brain. This is called the lizard brain. Your brain, the reptilian brain, and the lizard look exactly the same. Sorry to tell you that. And what's the purpose? Everybody read that out loud.
Survival, feeding, fleeing, fighting, reproduction, breathing, heart rate, primitive reflex.
That's it. It's just like, you're just alive, just like getting by. There's no thinking. It's just about, you're like an amoeba almost, right? The second part of your brain, that's the higher level of the brain, is called the mammalian brain. And what lives there? Everybody?
Emotions, memory, information, sexuality, timeless, hormones, perfectionism.
So that's where emotions are right? They're living. The most important part of the brain that we ascribe our lives to is the neocortex, or what? And that's where we live. Where? What lives there?
Reasoning, decision-making, language, spelling, grammar, math, all functions.
Right? And that's how we get around in life. But guess what? It's only 10% of the equation. So when you do therapy by itself, Guess what brain you're talking to?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So Greg, tell me, how do you feel about these? You see what I'm saying? But think about it. Is the feeling here?
No.
You're talking to the logical part of the brain. We call this the devil's lawyer. Let's make a deal. Well, what doesn't kill you will make you stronger. Yeah. You may not feel the same way, but you rationalize. And you know what? This is important to get by. Most of us have gotten to our parts of our lives despite all the challenges and our traumas in our lives because we survived it, right? Surviving something doesn't mean that you're going to get to the next level. You get stuck in that same pattern. You understand? Really, really important. This is what separates NET from just traditional therapy or drug therapy, because you're trying not to suppress the system. You're trying to actually encourage it to release the tension, but you have to find where it's coming from. Any questions about that or any thoughts or insights? So the research paper, we talked about that already. Again, the answers are basically in the mammalian part of the brain. So when we do traditional therapy, let me explain this to you. So anybody here have like an Android phone? You have an Android phone? Yeah. So you guys, everybody else has like iPhones, right? We'll talk later. No, I'm just kidding. So anyway, so the Android phone, what's different about that than the iPhones? What's different about our phones when it comes to the memory?
You have to put more memory in it.
Micro SD card,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the iPhone, they don't want you. They want you to pay for the memory for $10 million. So you can't. If you want more memory, you have to pay for it. In the other phones, the Android phones we have, you can buy a micro SD card up to like 512 gigabytes now, right? And you can put it in the phone, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is the phone memory the same as the micro SD card or no?
No.
Separate, correct?
Yeah.
Because you can take the micro SD card and put it in another phone
Mm-hmm.
and still have the same pictures and videos and so on, right? Here's the analogy. Your phone, the general phone memory,
Mm-hmm.
is your neocortex. You get it?
Mm-hmm.
The solutions are in the micro SD card.
Right.
How are you going to get to that? You ever try that? Like to try to like delete something, it's like it's not there, and then you can't. This is the most important thing, and the cool thing about it now with the technology and computers, it makes sense now. We can actually have something to sink your teeth into instead of some esoteric awareness or concept that doesn't make any sense. NET works on the mammalian part of your brain where the emotions live. The traditional model just looks at the neocortex. That's why you get stuck. Anybody, any thoughts about that? Okay. So, they also did studies. Another paper that they used is actually to look at the they saw changes in the cerebellar part of the brain by looking at heart rate, right? Because what happens if you're anxious and depressed, what usually happens to the heart rate? It goes up because like you're ready to fight or flee. Again, you go into sympathetic dominance. So they found that this is pre-NET and post-NET, and listening to the distressing cues as a consequence. So again, you can measure these things. Isn't it a challenge though when you just do the therapy alone? Like, what are you measuring? Just the outcomes of the behavior change or not. What else are you measuring? So you don't know if what you're doing is working, right?
Right.
That's why it's nice to be able to do these techniques, because then you can not only see outcomes there, but you can already have other scientific measures to know that the technique actually works. Okay. For more research, you can look at One Foundation, and they have a really good video on there. And so the dynamics, we're going to go through this very quickly. This is the boring part. What's your first name again?
Sierra.
Yeah, I'm not going to kill you with the boring part. You've already been in school all day. So we're going to go through this here really quick. So emotions are physiologically based. They actually live in your body. Okay? If you look at Candace Burt's work, watch. There are minute proteins in the body called informational substances or neuropeptides and hormones and specialized information molecules. They are actually in your DNA. Candice Burt died probably maybe 5 years ago. She was only in her 50s. She was the co-discoverer of opiate receptors in your brain. And she didn't know what to do with it until she found chiropractic. Because she's like, what do I do with this stuff? Well, she found a lot of these things are in your spine. These emotions are actually in your nervous system, right? So people didn't know what to do with it. But so emotions are in your body. They're not just some floating cloud things that come in and out. They're actually chemical secretions in your body. And the Pavlovian response, what happens is that you start reacting to emotions that have happened now, and if it's really stressful and you don't release it, it gets downloaded into your nervous system. And in Chinese acupuncture, they actually have meridian systems. For example, we'll talk about the different meridian systems in Chinese acupuncture. They've laid this out with, by the way, which is older, American medicine or Chinese medicine? Like, what's the difference? A couple of 100 years or maybe thousands of years, right? So they know what works and it's natural and it doesn't hurt anyone, right? So the emotions actually have correlations in here. For example, if you look at kidney and bladder meridians, emotions that live there are are fear, paralyzed will, inefficiency, dread, bad memory, impending doom. You see these emotions? You have to find where they are in the organs of the body before you can delete them. Remember a micro SD card? You got to find out where they are. Otherwise, they keep running and running and running. Gallbladder, liver, anger, resentment, frustration, aggression, depression. Can you see these? And all these different organs are related to emotions. Whoever put that together? The Chinese have. But since it doesn't sell meds, you don't know about it. Does that make sense? But we've been doing this from back early 80s now. And this is the bigger picture of it. This is the whole NET chart. It's related to the organs, the different spinal segments. We have homeopathic remedies that can help with it. This is how I got introduced to this. It says recurrent subluxations up there. Those are misalignments of your spine. I got tired of adjusting people again and again and again. I mean, if I can share with you, I mean, you were like, in the beginning when you first came in here, we're like, NET, NET, NET. You spend hours and hours. But you know what? That's no different than anybody else. If you don't wash your clothes, you're going to get really dirty. So whoever clears these emotions proactively, what do? We just stuff it, right? Kids are to be seen, not to be heard. Shh, I don't want to hear it. Make me happy, not you. Shh, quiet. So what do? We stuff it, right? But emotions buried alive never die. They just circulate throughout your whole body. So that's what the NET is for. Repetition compulsion. Freud said that when you have something that is not extinguished, what do? You keep doing it again and again and again. It becomes like a repetitive pattern. Again, these are the people that, you know, you just broke up with your boyfriend. Like, you met the same exact guy. Like 2 years later, it's just a different face. Or you keep finding the same job that you hate, and they keep abusing you over there, and they overwork you. What is going on? That's what repetition compulsion is, because you attract to your life, who you are, not what is. Everything comes from you, not to you. I know that's kind of deep, but you'll have to think about that tonight. We'll get back to that in another seminar. So, the role of memory. So when you remember a past stressful event, the body replicates the physiological event as if you're actually there. Example, how many here has smelled perfume all of a sudden when they were in high school, and you're back in high school like, hey, that was Andrea's perfume, right? Or that was Greg's cologne. Isn't that true? Or you hear a song, right? You get triggered by that song like, oh, I remember exactly where I was when that happened. Is that true? Because emotions live in your body and they get triggered in your physiology. They actually get trapped in there. So let's experience some of that. For example, okay, let me show you this. So nobody fall asleep, please. Okay, I'm going to get you relaxed for a couple of seconds. So everybody put your feet flat on the floor. Yeah, Nancy, I know you. So you snored last time. So I had to throw a banana at her. So wake up, Nancy. Come on. So all right. So everybody put your hands on your lap. Put your shoulders back on the chair. Close your eyes for a moment. And take a nice deep breath and hold the breath up right on top of your lungs. And breathe out slowly. And breathe in and breathe out slowly. Good. I want you to picture in your mind's eye as you continue to relax. Picture yourself in a beautiful kitchen. It's a brand new kitchen. beautiful countertops there made out of granite. Next to there's a huge refrigerator. It's like a big, beautiful refrigerator. There's only one thing as you open that refrigerator, and there's a big, organic, yellow lemon. You take that lemon. You're already salivating? Look at Sierra's already like...
Just thinking of her.
So keep going, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Take that lemon, put it on a cutting board, and you just reach into the drawer. There's a really, really sharp knife there, be careful. You only use it during Thanksgiving and you put it away for the rest of the time. You're gonna cut that lemon slowly. You can see all those juices running down on your hand onto the cutting board. It's really pungent odor of lemon and very sour smelling. And you take that lemon, put it close to your nose and really smell that, right? And then in your mind's eyes, you tilt your head back. Take that lemon and squeeze that lemon into your mouth and just taste all the juices. Oh wait, I see a salt shaker. Take a salt shaker and put it right on that lemon. Put lots and lots of salt on it and take another big bite of that lemon. Take a bite of the rind while you're at it too, and just really squeeze all the lemons. Okay, everybody's like grimacing right now. All right, everybody open your eyes right now. Now let me explain. You started it. He was just
I
like, boom.
actually eat lemons.
What's that?
I eat lemons with the rind and all.
Yeah. But you were like, "Ooh." Anyway, how many there salivated? I could tell. I know who you are. So, right? Let me ask you something. Was there a lemon here?
No.
I don't see any lemons. What are you doing salivating? Do you see the power of your mind? Whether something is imagined or real, it doesn't matter. And this is why people have anxiety and depression and, really, really severe emotional stresses. Because think about this. It's not about convincing someone that to change your behavior. How many here, when she was, let's say 5 years old, right? Did you have any fears or anything? Were you afraid of like monsters in the like bed or under the bed or I'm sure everybody does because it's a natural response to want to be protected as a child, right? So guess what? You could convince her, hey, listen, I called the FBI, the CIA, I have buddies there. They did all their sophisticated equipment. They looked under your bed, all the different measurements they have. This is a 50-page report. There's no monster in your bed. There's no monster in your closet. Do you care if you're 3 years old? There's a monster under the bed. So there's nothing you can do to convince her, even all the research and proof in reality, because guess what? Emotions are emotional reality. If you believe there's a monster under the bed, there's nobody that can convince you there isn't, because your body will respond accordingly. Anybody ever have a nightmare? Right? Like somebody's chasing you or some really horrible thing. What are you doing when you wake up? You're sweating profusely. You're like, oh, thank God, right? It was a thought. Do you understand? The question we have is, how are you going to analyze where those thoughts are coming from and to evaluate where they are? Because unless you get to a micro SD card, you're going to spend your wills. Right? Because that's really what's happening in today's world. It's such a sad, sad, sad state. Because people are, and this is the lemon thing we're talking about. So, yeah, you basically have a response to the what? Memory of the lemon. If you've never experienced it, you probably wouldn't have any experience. But if you have the memory of it, so guess what? What can the memory trigger, right, in your physiology? Fight or flight when nothing's really going on. I've had people come in and they say, I just had to pull over on the side of the road. I had no idea what happened. I wasn't thinking anything. There's no stress in my life. And I had to pull over because I was having an anxiety attack. I almost like crashed into other cars because it gets triggered. The question is, where are these emotions and how can we resolve them? And so what we do is what's called muscle testing. Studies have been done on that. We have a whole seminar on that. And this is Dr. Dan Monti. He's actually the psychiatrist. What's that?
He's taller than you.
What's that? A little bit.
Taller,
Yeah. So he was standing on a crate. So Filipinos are usually very tall. So that's why. This is like, wow, man, that was so long ago. Look how much more hair there. Right? I see it that way. So it's my emotional reality. So leave me alone. So all memory events are considered, again, emotional reality. It has nothing to do with real reality. Your body's going to respond to it. And that's why it's really difficult when you just talk about something, because you got to get it out of your body. Muscle testing. When the muscle test happens, you can't really help it. It's like a reflex, like when you have a patellar reflex, or when somebody goes like this, you blink. That's like a startle reflex. So that's kind of what happens with the muscle test. When you communicate with the body, it's like a biofeedback mechanism. And so the semantic response, you can stimulate a thought by talking to somebody and say, and your physiology will respond appropriately. We're going to do a demonstration in a moment here. And once you understand, like cures like, meaning that once you re-experience where the issues are and you find out where that is on your micro SD card, you are actually there. And there's a way we can delete that using the NET technique. It's amazing. It's so, oh my gosh, I mean, the stories I could tell you about kids who were 8 years old and 6 years old. And this one girl, she was 14. She was like a beautiful cheerleader. She just out of the blue, boom, she just became depressed. And they had no issue. They had no idea what was going on with her. She wouldn't get on the bus. She would stop going to school. And she was really pretty and popular, and nobody could help her out. And basically, we did the NET, and what my colleague, Dr. Chamberlain, actually said, listen, I need your help. This kid is like this was probably like 10 years ago. She's probably like out of college now. And she said, I need your help. These people are in really desperate need. We don't know what to do with her. She's frozen. She can't get out of her bed. It's so devastating. So I said, okay. So I had no time to explain this. It's a Saturday morning. I had to, come here. And I said, listen, parents, I'm sorry, but I didn't do the seminar with them. I just started doing the energy, like, what are you doing? So anyway, the dad and mom were there, like, what is he doing? So anyway, we worked on it. And what happened was that the stuff that would go on, I think it's most of the time I don't remember, but because I don't need to, because once you delete a file, you don't have to remember, right? Because a lot of times when you go to a therapist, they have to come up with the solutions for you. Is that true? Mm-hmm. Oh, when you're feeling this way, here's what I want you to do, correct? Take a deep breath, focus on this, do a mantra, do meditation, but you're doing what? Neocortex. Where do the emotions live? Mammalian brain. Get it? So what we need to do is access this. So that's why when I do NET, I don't remember anything. I can't tell if you had a brother or a sister. Like, you already asked me that, right, Jackie? It's like, I don't remember, because I don't need to. I don't need to burden myself with that, because I'm not coming up with your solutions. You're coming up with your own solutions. You've done many times the NET. So what happened then is that she went back to, I did some technique, and the mom came, talked to me the next day. I think it was Sunday. I called them, like, how's she doing? She goes, you won't believe this. Like, oh, is that good? It's like, yeah, it's good. So what do you mean? Well, when you were doing the thing when she was 6 years old in the bus and didn't want to get on the bus and she was afraid, I forgot to tell you this, but when she was like 6, 7, like in first, second grade, she used to bite her finger so much she would bleed because she would be so anxious to go to school, right? And we had no idea what was going on. So, and she goes, I just remember that. Well, after you did the NET, we couldn't find her. Like, where'd she go? Well, she was in her sister's room, which was unusual because she's been fighting with her sister for 6 months. They had been talking to each other. And they're like huggy, kissy, it's like with this one session, right? Because we were able to identify where the emotions were that were stuck, that was creating these behaviors that were unlikable behaviors, but they couldn't control it. And it's so sad because we're blaming the kids, like, I'm gonna choke you to death. Like, Mom, it's not in my brain. It's in a different part of my brain. You get it? And you start blaming people as if it's their fault. And sometimes, here's another thing that's really freaky, and the scriptures say this: the sins of the fathers get passed on for 3 to 4 generations. You can have neuroemotional complexes that are not even yours. It's so sad. It gets passed down, from your grandparents. Think about this. Let's say you had a debt you didn't pay, right? You pass it down to the next person, You didn't have a choice. Here's another thing. In the traditional model, isn't it true you go therapy? So Jackie, tell me how you feel. Well, my mother, no, we don't go there. Let's not talk about your mother's feelings because we don't know how isn't that true? You're only responsible for your own feelings. Well, in NET, guess what we find? You get drive-by shooting with feelings. Oh. Do you ever, I'm going to confess, all right? I had 2 kids. There were 2 boys. They're 19 and 14 right now. But when they were little, I'm a new dad. I'm like, you know, right, Greg? Like you just like lose it. Like, "Rrr." Did you ever do that? Did you ever see them
He's
go?
never done that.
He's never done that. No, he's a nice guy. You just lose them because you're just done with it, and you know you're busy. You got things to do. You ever see them react? Go, right? I feel so sad. Like, oh, what did I do to my kids? You like kill them emotionally. But you know what that is? You're downloading. Emotions are energy in motion. That's what's called emotions. They're energy in motion. So you download that, and how many times does that happen again and again and again? And so now you start bearing your feelings, and there's some people that just start hurting themselves, right? Because they don't know else how to. They bury the feelings so deeply that they can't feel anymore, right? And guess what? Those feelings never leave you until you do the NET, and you can actually go back and clean those things out, right? So that's the story, and there's just so many different stories. And again, talk about emotional reality. This one guy comes in. I was able to help his wife. Listen to this. This is like talk about pressure on the doctor, right? So she was referred to me by one of my chiropractic colleagues in Reading, and she'd already had back surgery 10 years prior. She was still in agonizing pain all the time. The husband goes, if you don't go see someone else, I'm divorcing you. You can't do anything. You're worth nothing. We can't be intimate. You can't do any hard work. What are we going to do? Like, I'm done. So she comes here, she goes, can you help me? It's like, yeah. But anyway, I didn't really do that because the technique works. So make a long story short, and within 3 months, pain was totally gone. I didn't even touch her spine. Powerful, powerful. Well, that's not the story. The story behind the story, her husband owns a business, and he wanted his business. He was stuck at like $2 million a year, right? Poor guy. So, well, he has high overhead. So he wanted to bring it to $3.5 million a year. So we did the NET, and he was doing a thing. And here's the thing. First thing that showed up, when he was 16, he was at a restaurant, and his dad, who he truly admired, said, Dad, can I order surf and turf? Dad goes, no, what do you think we are, made out of money? Stop that. We're not ordering surf and turf. That's expensive, right? It's $25. And he thought, his emotional reality was, that's what made me really driven. I became a driven man ever since then. It's like I've just excelled in everything that I did, and you know, I'm a self-made man, and that's the reason why. But I can't get my business. Anyway, we did, and he got his business to where it wanted to. He was thankful. He tells me a story one time. He meets his dad because he came to visit, and he goes, Dad, I want to talk to you about something. I've been doing this NET thing, and do you remember when I was 16, that surf and turf changed my life? The guy goes, what the hell are you talking about? I don't remember anything. So the point is that it's your emotional reality. Something could never happen and you just thought it happened.
Right.
It's affecting you. Isn't that crazy? And that's why when you just talk about it, you can't identify because you're always trying to attach something that you remember. How many times do you not remember anything? You understand? So that's really, really critical to understand the mechanism of the NET because they're actually embedded in your cellular memory. Emotions buried alive never die. All right. Who wants to be an example? If it gets too personal, you can just think it. You don't have to explain it to anybody. But we can just demonstrate. It'll take maybe 5 minutes to explain. If you're either having a physical issue or you're having a stressful issue, you can identify if there's something new or something that's old. And if you get rid of the old thing in your hard drive, that's like a nice session to be able to do. Who wants to volunteer?
Okay,
All right, Jackie. Yeah, I've done this before. We've already cleared out most of your crazy stuff anyway, so this will be like the easy stuff. So,
we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. That's right. Okay, so come on closer this way. Is there anything? Okay, here's another thing. We need to look for. You can do physical entry, mind entry, right? Some people come in because they have chronic pain. You see, is there a neuroemotional component to that? Some people are depressed. Some people have anxiety. Some people, you have to ask the body, is there something associated with that that's neuroemotional? It doesn't always have to be, correct? But you have to ask the body the question. Only this body knows that because everything that she's ever experienced throughout since childhood has been downloaded in her hard drive, right? So where are the answers? Is it in me? Inside. That's why if I'm a therapist alone and I keep coming, oh, I have 5 degrees and I'm a PhD in this, like, it doesn't matter what your degree is. The question is, what does she need? The answers are in here. This is where the answers lie. So is it physical or emotional stuff, stressful, something?
Emotional.
Emotional stuff, okay. You want to share or you just want to think it?
Well, it just happened yesterday. It was
Okay.
weird because my I went over to my sister's house to give her some pictures, and we got talking, and she told me we were talking about my baby pictures, and she was a little pink baby, you know, and I was a big, dark, hairy baby when I was born.
Okay.
And she reminded me of when my mother said, she goes, "Well, that's not my baby." She brought the baby. They brought me into the room, and she said, "That's not my baby because I have pink, small, little babies."
Exactly. So you immediately okay. Yeah. So you saw this picture.
Yeah.
And then.
Well, I started to get upset.
Upset. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Because I thought to myself, she didn't like me even when I was born.
Yeah. And this is a very common thing. You know what else too? What do we find? It's really crazy. We find emotions in utero. The baby's not even born, and the parents are having issues. Download. In utero, it's a very, very common thing. It's so crazy, and nobody ever goes there. So our goal now is to find out. Here's another thing. You can have an emotional response like that, totally normal, not an NEC. You move on, deal with it. It's fine. But if it is an issue, you better go find it because it'll keep getting triggered again and again. And then what happens when you have what's called stimulus generalization, everything else will trigger you about that thing, and now you're at, and you can't you can't even get out of bed anymore. Everything becomes a trigger to everything else because you're so stressed out, right? Think about that. So you're a little black baby, right? No, I'm just kidding. So that's did I interpret that properly? No, I'm just kidding. You're a dark baby when everybody else that your mom wants is a pink baby, right? Okay. So imagine seeing that picture, right? Lock the elbow and hold strong. Think about that. Okay, so it's not responding. Put your hand on your forehead. Hold. See how it goes down? That tells you there's a neuroemotional component. See, watch. She's thinking about it. Hold. Okay. Don't hold that. Just think about the situation, the picture. And I'm fine with it. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? Put your hand on your forehead. Goes weak. It's a neuroemotional component. We could just move on and say, have a nice day, but you can handle it, deal with it. You're older now, so you can wrap. We don't. There's an emotional component, so let's find out where. Think about that situation. We're going to go through the organs. Hold it. Hold it. It's in the lung. Lung is grief, sadness, yearning, cloudy thinking. Your emotion of cloudy thinking. So what's your cloudy thinking about when your mom says, "That's not my baby"? Are you wondering like, "Oh my God, am I really adopted?" Or is that right?
Yeah. Well,
is my father a gorilla? Or like... It's like...
No, I just thought, well, I always had a feeling that I wasn't one in any way. Okay, exactly. But your cloudy thing that she really not want me. Right. Okay. Did she never want me from the very beginning? Right. That idea. Nope. Because see, here's another thing. Isn't it true you can go to a therapist and go, "Oh, but that's the way." Well, let's talk about that some more. It's not an issue. Move on. Yeah. It's not it. Keep going. Sorry. So your emotion of cloudy thinking. Why doesn't she want me? No. Does she not really love me? Does she prefer my sister? No. What's another emotion? The cloudy thinking. So you want to focus on the emotion that her body's showing on the lung meridian, and then you take that until you find where the problem is, right? It's not what I'm thinking, not what she thinks it is, it's what is. And that's in the physiology, in the DNA, not just in your thinking. So your cloudy thinking, what are you unclear about? Well, actually, I always thought that she wanted a boy and not a girl. Anything to do with that idea. There it is. Can you see what's significant now? Go back, think about, does she really love me or not, right? Mm-hmm. Not an issue. Does she really want me or not? Does she prefer my sister or not? Right? Yeah. Does she want a boy instead of me? There it is. Can you see that? So how is that going to trigger? So think about that now. The concept of an original time in your life when somebody was feeling the emotion of cloudy thinking that they preferred someone over them. Is this a present time issue? Good. So what you want to do, you want to hold the emotion, the lung meridian, right? Take your hand on your forehead. This is the emotional point. This is how we delete the files. You are now in the present moment thinking about, she wanted a boy, she didn't want me, right? And any other emotions that you elicit as a consequence of that, think about that. The intensity can scale of 0 to 10. What's the intensity right now? Are you asking me?
Yes. Of cloudy thinking. Does she really want a boy instead of me? Does she not want me because I'm not a boy? What's the intensity there?
It's a little high.
Go ahead. What's the number out of 10?
A 7.
Stay with it. So now you stay with it. When you think about that emotion, you're connecting where it got stuck in that organ, the lung meridian. You're connecting it to the part of the brain, and you're now rubbing it, and now you're there now. You let me know, Jackie, when the cloudy thinking begins to diminish to a 1, and then we'll make a correction. Stay with it. Here's the thing. Take your time. Don't rush it. Cloudy thinking. She wants a boy, she doesn't want me because I'm a girl. What's the number now?
3.
Yeah, stay with it. So as your body begins to feel these things, it releases the tension as if you're really there, right? And it leaves your DNA. It's almost like, it's like that. You got
Feel
it?
my heartbeat getting slower.
Yeah.
You know?
Right. So you're there. Your body really changes physiologically. No side effects, no drugs. Your body's healing itself right before your very eyes.
Okay, I'm there.
Cloudy thinking, keep your hands there. You gotta correct it. You wanna correct it? You wanna go?
Oh no.
Just kidding. Take a deep breath, breathe in. And breathe out. Take T2, breathe in. T9. And breathe in. And breathe out. Good. So basically, we just deleted the hard drive. What are we gonna say? Is there anything left over? Turn around this way. Okay. Hold this arm. Think about the same situation. You see this picture, one goes, that's not my baby. I wanted a boy. I don't want like a little black girl. So I wanted a little boy. Think about that again, right? Hand on your forehead, think about that picture. Clear now. Can you see this? Now, if we had time, we would go deep into that. I'm okay letting go of my belief that I'm a little black boy, or whatever.
Black girl.
I'm a black girl. Sorry, I'm getting all confused. Let's see. I don't know. So I'm okay forgiving my mother, right? For having me feel like I'm unwanted. And again, it's all your emotional reality. People do stuff all the time, right? Right? The surf and turf. Like, what surf and turf? I have no idea. Like, you looked at me wrong. Like, I did? It's like, I had something in my eye. So, you just can get downloaded with so many different things in life, and you misinterpret things constantly, again and again. So we could go, and for like a 30-minute session, you would go, I'm okay forgiving my mom. I'm okay forgiving myself. I'm okay forgiving myself for judging myself to be unworthy when mom didn't even care. I'm okay, she might have been like, the hormones were still running around. Who knows? You know what I mean? So that's what you would do. So think about her again. Think about the picture.
Okay.
Good. Put your hand on your forehead. Good. And that's the way it works. And then you would do 2 fingers there. This is check for homeopathic remedy. When you clear those organs out, the emotions can still be kind of lingering around. You put some homeopathic remedies associated with those organs to kind of like a salve to calm it down, so that you don't keep going back and forth and having that freaky experience again. And she doesn't need anything right now. Good. Hey, give her a big hand. Thank you for volunteering that experience then. So any questions about that mechanism? Again, it's so unique, but we've been doing it for so long, and gosh, the countless of kids who have been able to, it's unbelievable. Yeah, I could go on and on with the stories and so on. Because the reason why it works is because it's the law of the body. Nancy, question?
Yeah, I'm not sure what got it from 7 down to 3 to 1. Just
By experiencing it. When you find the organ that the emotions are stuck in her case it was the lung, right? And then you think about it and you hold the emotional point, your body goes back in time and processes it and finishes it. It processes it instead of like getting stuck of, oh, you just think you want a boy and that's it. I'm just frump then. I'm just going to stay here for the rest of my life, and perseverating on it. You get it? When you stay with it and you're in a safe place, you hold those different organ systems. And again, that's what the research shows. The body processes the emotion, it digests it, it lets it go, and it's done. It deletes that file. The memory will never leave. The memories are always there, correct? But the charge to the emotion is now gone.
Right.
So now when you write, Jackie, so
Right.
when you think of that now, like, all right, well, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, just like, it might still go like this, but it's no longer like runs you. So, any other questions, Nan? That was a good question, by the way. Okay. So, I hope that you got some benefit from that. And if you need a little more information, we have some books on there. There's netmindbody.com. Very, very powerful. I wish you had more time to really discuss and some case studies, but it's tremendous. We've saved so many different lives as a consequence of this, because people really, you know, get stuck. Again, if you need more information, get on netmindbody.com, and contact us also if you would like an NET consultation. That's something that we do. And so this was 2018 when we had the advanced NET seminar. So that's how tall I really was, Jackie. So I told him to get off this thing. And then he said, Mariano, get off, stop fooling around, show them how really tall I am. So, this is when the research was actually unveiled. When they did this study. It was amazing, because when they were still doing the research in the beginning in 2013, I was really excited about it, because the clinical psychologists who've never been exposed to NET before, they were like, oh my God, this is like, we've never seen anything like this before. We put the galvanic skin response and the heart rate ones, like, and they're all going up and down. It's like, we've never seen anything like this before. Like, we never taught this in school. So it's really, really powerful. Oh, wait.
Yeah, it's like I feel real calm right now.
Really?
Yeah.
I'll give you the $1 later. So. No, I'm just kidding. Really?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So it can be, but see, it doesn't always happen like that. She's done so much work, right?
Yes.
In the beginning, she would have all kinds of, I mean, if you don't mind my sharing, like aches and pains, and a lot of people have all these chronic aches and pains, and nothing helps, right? Could be neuroemotional. We just did with your mom that hours and hours. And have you seen a change in her after all these, you know, since we've been working together? I mean, she's not a perfect woman yet, but, you know, give us time. But
Almost there.
Almost there now. No, it's like the transformation. She used to be in chronic pain all the time, right? I mean,
Yeah.
And then it's like now she's, you know, taking seminars and kinesiotaping people, and you know, it's like she's doing great.
Yeah.
Yes. Renee.
So, do we go from alignment, subluxation to NET? So how does it work?
Thank you for that. That's the next step. Ready?
Oh,
Okay. So that's Dr. Scott Walker. It's not Santa Claus. He's the guy that started the whole thing. This was all the history of when it all began. And this is the man that is a genius. He's like such a simple man from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he just discovered NET. This is the guy that started the whole thing. There's actually a seminar in November, right in Jersey. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I'll talk to you about that.
Okay.
So what problems can be resolved with any neuroemotional complexes? Allergies, believe it or not. Allergies are autoimmune. And you'll find out in research, your immune system and nervous system are one and the same thing. Anxiety, depression, right? Cancer, autoimmune issues. You'll see people that do the cancer protocols that are natural and don't make it. It's because they ignore the emotional component. You understand? Because your body could be healthy physiologically, but if you get stuck in there, it's not a good thing. I talked about being the disc patient for 10 years. And repetition compulsion, the relationship conflicts that you keep getting again and again into, and like, I don't understand, and you're so smart, you go, I don't know why I keep getting mad at that person, and I know I should love them, you know what I mean? And the NET can definitely be beneficial. Is that phobias, dissatisfaction with your job? This is the one thing I love to do with athletes, and there's a book we have on there. These athletes can actually be benefited. For example, you can sabotage yourself, right? People that keep dropping the ball in football, or they can't qualify. Sometimes it could be a neuroemotional component as a consequence of that. And you can actually help these things. Losing and winning. And we talked about this already, right? Counseling versus NET. The analogy is that a therapist will teach you how to walk, right? NET takes the stones out of your shoes. See the difference? It's a physiological thing. It's not just in your head. And stop blaming people for that as a consequence of that. So Rainier, here you go. There's 6 components that could be contributing to an issue. It could be either physical or structural, neurological, It could be biochemical. It could be electromagnetic frequencies. If you're exposed to a lot of that, especially with the young kids, it messes up your brain frequencies and it stresses the frequency. And that's all day long in school, right? 5G is really, really bad for you. You need to be turning off your Wi-Fi at night. Like if you're plugged in to the thing, put it on the shut down your Wi-Fi. It's going to make a big difference because those frequencies are hitting you when you're sleeping at night. Big factor. Toxic overload. Everybody's full of metals, and when we do our testing, everybody's full of metals. It affects your brain chemistry. It affects your behavior as well. And when you're a little kid, the more you're full of your metals, the more you're full of metals, it really affects your behavior as well. Allergies and infections we talked about, and then the NET. So Rainier, any of these things could be contributing to this behavior. You get it? The job is to identify all these segments and say, what's the next step? It's like if you're going to remodel a house, right? You can't work on everything all at once. What do? Start in the kitchen, you get done there, you move to the living room until everything's remodeled. And that's really what the body wants to do. Here's the beautiful thing. Unlike other therapies, what we do, when we do the work, you ask the body, number one, am I feeling safe? Number two, you ask the body permission. Is it time to do this now? You never induce yourself to that body and say, we need to do NED because I want you to change. Like, no. Let's ask your body, are you ready? And that's the beautiful thing. A lot of kids, especially, they don't want to talk to therapists, right? Do you? You want to go talk to a therapist?
I do like therapy.
Do you? But that's most kids, do they? No, they don't want to talk. I don't want to, it's like, but the thing is, when you're doing the muscle testing, you're talking to yourself. You're figuring it out, see what's going on. It's like, oh, and you get to really start liking yourself, loving yourself, everybody around you, that you become more loving because you're clearing yourself out and not blaming everybody else. And that's the beauty of it. And that, I'm glad that you do like therapy because that's really, really beneficial because that's a good gateway for you to get things out. But most people, when they get stuck, that's the reason why. Because they're not looking at the different part of the brain to actually get deep into finding these issues. Again, the brain and nerve system control everything in the body. When you have 100% communication, this is another really important factor before we close here. If you have 100% communication, you have 100% what?
Function.
Right. When the vertebrae misalign, you put stress pressure on the nervous system, that's called subluxation, the function decreases, correct? And then it inhibits the expression of life. It's like slow cancer-like death because when you're feeling these patterns of misalignments, even if you don't feel them, it becomes an issue. They've done studies on it. Dr. Windsor back in 1921, they found out that whatever person this person died of, he was a pathologist, that part of the spine that the nerves associated with had either a small scoliosis or the most amount of arthritis. The equation being, when you damage the spine, you damage the nerve system, you damage your health. So ideally you're born with what?
Optimal health function.
Correct? But as time goes by, your spine becomes misaligned, you get stressed. Then what happens next, Greg?
Nerve system interference.
Yeah, and then the next thing, everybody else?
Body malfunction.
And then what?
Loss of muscle.
You lose your health. And here's the last part, you ready? This is what everybody tries to fix.
Muscles pain.
Symptoms. Isn't that true that your doctor goes, hey, once you feel better, you really are better. Are you really? That's why people don't get well. You have to go to the back. You have to reverse engineer everything until you get to where you need to be. So there are many people, do you know, they're suffering from anxiety and depression, and it's such a challenge, but the good news about it, we have the solutions for those things. I've never seen anybody, as long as they persisted. The only challenge, if they're on medication, it makes it a lot harder because the medication, challenges the brain. But, there are people out there that we need to reach out to save them. The next seminar is 5 stress busters to help you have a fun-filled holiday season. Because most people right now, with the Halloween, people are going to start getting sick. And there's strategies on how to make sure it doesn't happen, and we're going to share that with you next week at 6:30 p.m. Again, our mission statement is to provide the best technology in holistic health and life care. We want to inspire everybody that's here right now to have hope so you could be living in Thrival, so you could be a beacon of hope for others. People online, please type in your questions and comments. If you found value, people online, or got inspired by anything that we shared with you today, please comment and like us so we can have a discussion and be connected with you guys. And I know for sure that many of you are watching right now. They have people online that are desperate, that have lost hope and they don't know where else to turn. please pass this video on to them or tag them on this so that they can then be able to have some hope. We can refer them to somewhere else or come to our practice as well. Those of you online as well, please like our Facebook page, Mariano Holistic Life Center, and Doctor with no space, Dennis Mariano, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. Why are we out there? We want to give people hope because there are many people that have lost hope. That's our website, drmariano.com. So this is just the beginning, folks. I know that there's a lot of things that we've downloaded on you tonight. Just to let you know, we have seminars in every 6 of those components to help you to learn these principles so you can help yourself and filter information through when you see things in the media, so you don't get influenced by it. Last questions before we close this evening. So listen, thank you so much for being here this evening. We want to applaud you. Everybody give yourself a big hand. Because you know what? You could have chosen to be somewhere else tonight and done the same old thing and watched the same old show, but you chose to be here to learn something different. My hope is that you learn something enough to touch somebody else's life in order that they can be a better life or maybe even save somebody's life. So thank you for being here. With that, we want to close with this poem. People are illogical, unreasonable, and self-centered. Love them anyway. If you do good, people will accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Do good anyway. If you are successful, you will win false friends and true enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest and frank, and people may cheat you, be honest and frank anyway. People favor underdogs, but follow only top dogs. Fight for the few underdogs anyway. What you spend years building may be destroyed overnight. Build anyway. People really need help, but may attack you if you do help them. Help people anyway. Give the world the best you have and you'll get kicked in the teeth. Just get new dentures. No, wait, that's not what it says. Give the world the best you have anyway. If you find serenity and happiness, they may be jealous. Be happy anyway. You see, in the final analysis, it's between you and your God. It was never between you and them anyway. Thank you so much for being here this evening. Please drive safely until we see you in the next seminar. Have a good night. And see you to the next video. Take care. Thank you.